With October 20th only a few days away here in the province of Alberta, that means the Alberta municipal election cycle is entering the final hours of its infancy. Candidates for mayor, reeve, and yes, even councillor are stepping forward with ideas for brighter futures and smarter growth for each and every single one of their municipalities. Now, in today's edition of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025, we are turning our attention back to the City of Airdrie, Alberta, where we are honored to be sitting down and chatting with Mayoral Candidate Heather Spearman. Heather, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and talking about your bid to become Airdrie's next city mayor. Before we get into the issues, before we get into the challenges, let's talk about your decision to run for mayor. You announced a few days after the current incumbent mayor announced that he would not be seeking, or actually, I think it was the same day that he announced that he was not seeking re-election. Why did you decide to put your name for offer for the mayorship of the great city of Airdrie, Alberta?
Great question. The truth is, I have had a bit of an understanding of that seat for quite some time. In 2021, when I threw my name in for council, I'd heard a rumor that Mayor Brown was going to pull his name. And I personally called him the day that the deadline was. And I said, Mayor Brown, I heard you might be pulling your name out today. If that's the case, I need to know because I've got my papers ready to put in for the next mayor if you'll have me. And he kind of laughed and he's like, no, no. He's like, I thought about it. I'm not pulling my name. I'm going to do this. And I was like, okay. And then I had a wonderful 4 years as the only new councillor on the city council for Airdrie. However, over the last while, I really loved my time on council. Sometimes as a human, you are very fortunate to realize that there are some things that you are just born to do. And for me, I feel like I was born to do this. And I've had a great 4 years. I've learned a ton. We've gotten a ton done as a council. I feel really passionate about my communication and transparency with my community. And I think they feel the same way about me. So for the last while, I've had a lot of people coming up and saying, hey, can you run for mayor? Hey, can you run for mayor? And respectfully, I really wanted to be cautious about overstepping, especially because, Mayor Brown's been such a mentor to me. And he surprised us all. He hadn't told a single soul other than probably his family that he was not going to be running for re-election. So the day that he announced it, he kind of gave me a heads up he'd be making an announcement, but he didn't say what it was going to be. And I was like, oh, well, whatever. I'll just wait for it and then I'll decide how to put my papers in. And then, yeah, he announced he wasn't running. And about 15 minutes later, I was on the phone to media saying, meet me at 12:15. We're doing an announcement at City Hall. And I let a few friends know and they showed up in droves and we did it. And the rest has just been pedal to the metal ever since.
So, as I said, we're going to talk about the issues in a few minutes, but I want to talk about the type of mayor the city of Airdrie needs at this time. Now, the best indication of performances of a councillor or a mayor is of what has happened in the past, the state of the last 4 years. Now, you just mentioned that you were the only new council member on council in 2021. How do you look back on the last 4 years and your impact on the decisions that were made around that council table, knowing that you were one vote of seven to direct the path forward of the city of Airdrie?
Yeah, and I mean, you make a really good point. One voice in seven, it means that when people come and say, well, what are you going to do about this? And what are you going to do about that? And you go, well, I'm one voice. This is a team effort and it's all about collaboration. And for the most part, we had our differences as a council, but we tended to collaborate quite well. So even if we didn't agree on something, we still got to the end point. And some of our biggest wins as a result of that, we're getting the 40th Ave overpass done in Airdrie, which is a huge safety and traffic concern for us with our growth. We're about to hit 100,000 people in the next 2 years here. And so that growth is unprecedented and we were bursting at the seams. So that was a big win for us. We recently just opened Inspire, which is our new multi-use facility right on Main Street in the heart of Airdrie. And within that is a state-of-the-art library, art studios, galleries, podcast studios, meeting rooms, places to gather. And that was something that Airdrie residents had been begging for. So I'm really proud of those things. I'm also really proud of the Arts and Culture Council that was finally activated and funded through the city. And it has created an incredible team of people who are creating opportunities for artists and artist wannabes of every age. So we've had some really big wins, huge housing wins as well. And I want to be really specific about that because we're talking about below market housing. Airdrie's need in the next roughly 5 to 10 years is going to be to have 2,000 below market housing units. That's where we need to be. And we were nowhere near that. So I was really fortunate. I said to Mayor Brown early in my team, or early in my term, pardon me, that if there was a conversation around housing, I wanted to be at the table. And he was very gracious to allow me to be in a multitude of ministry meetings where we got to advocate for funding. And we eventually got a few $1 million towards a project that allowed us to convert a hotel into 42 below market units, which was huge for Airdrie. That doubled our inventory instantly. We've opened that. People are living there. We've still got a waiting list. We've got more funding that we got from the federal government because, of course, they'll take funding from anywhere we can get it. And that's been a huge win because we're growing opportunities for people. We're growing living for people. We're helping them meet their basic needs in a way that only a municipality can. And it has been a team effort. I think my true impact has been my advocacy. I really like to run my mouth. And a lot of the time, my council colleagues have taken that in stride and let me do that. And they've cheered me on a lot of the time and they've collaborated with me. And I'm not doing everything myself. Absolutely not. Everybody's got the stuff that they advocate for, but I feel really good about the things I've brought to the table. And I feel really good that most of my council mates have had my back. A couple of things where I've lost the war. Well, I should say lost the battle because the war is still ongoing, around transit and a couple other things, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
One of the big things that as a mayor or even as a councillor you have to do is to listen. The one thing I
Mhm.
often hear from municipal leaders is I have two ears and one mouth, so I should be listening twice as much as I should be talking. Now, these
Yeah.
elections are the perfect time to listen to the concerns of the residents. But, and I say this respectfully, you should be also doing that during your term as well, which I know you have because you've been engaging with people. How do you see yourself if you are chosen as mayor listening to the people of Airdrie? Because you're right, you're coming up to 100,000 people, and I can imagine there's going to be 100,000 different views on different issues that you're going to have to deal with. How do you see yourself being able to take all that information and chart the best path forward with your team of council?
Yeah, I'm going to give you two parts to answer that question. Number one, when it comes to my vision for council, we are going to have 7 different personalities with 7 different passions and 7 different, ways of doing things. And in my career, I have always been the most successful when I work with a group of people that have different talents and you just let them do what they do. Let them have their strengths and let them rise to the occasion. We are definitely going to have at least 2 new council members because of myself and another colleague stepping away to run for mayor. So when you give people the opportunity to rise to the occasion, when you give people the opportunity to follow their passions and be the specialists, if you will, that for me is how we are going to work together as a team, is letting people step into their strength. As a mayor, you're only one person. And if you try to take it all on yourself, you're alienating your colleagues. You might be alienating the community. And at the end of the day, we should all be a team. So for me, that's part of it. And then the other piece really is how do we listen? Um, it's something I've been really passionate about for the last 4 years. And you're right, when you say it's something we should be doing the whole time, not just around campaign season. And it's blatant. There are people that just pop their heads up around campaign time. And it's a bit like shame on them. I understand everyone's busy and we all have different, barriers in our lives. But for me, the last 4 years, I have been adamant that I am constantly communicating, especially online, because that's kind of an easy place. And I have a joke that Airdrie is, single-handedly keeping Facebook in business because everybody's on social media on Airdrie, and that's how they communicate. And I get it; it's a bedroom community, and you're commuting, so you get your news from Facebook. But um, so I've always been present in that way. I've brought very challenging things to social media. I'll say, hey, this is a decision that I made. I know it's not popular, but here's why. And then I let people respond. And sometimes they're spicy, and I just give them the grace and I give them the opportunity to say what is on their mind. And then we talk about it and we keep it open. And I think that's the one thing people are begging for is communicate with me. Tell me why. And it doesn't have to be the perfect solution, but if they understand how we got there, then they're a lot more compassionate to the decisions that we're making and how we're spending their tax dollars. So that is another part of it. I think for me, as a kid growing up, I was really exposed to politics, and I loved that in Lethbridge, even when I was little and long before my dad was the mayor. In the local paper, there was a monthly mayor's column, and they still do it to this day, I think. But I really loved that. And I loved it even as a kid because I understood what was going on in my city and why. So shamelessly, I want to bring that tradition to Airdrie and have it in our paper once a month and just say, hey, here's what's going on. And even if it's not me, even if it's a council colleague that's representing that month, I don't care. As long as we're getting the message out and people know what we've been up to that month and what we're looking forward to.
The role of mayor, the role of council is to listen to all perspectives. Now, I'm
Mhm.
going to burst your bubble here for a second, Heather, and I apologize to do it right now, right here, but I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and say you are not going to get 100% of the votes if you win this election. And that means you are going to have to listen to people who strongly oppose you, who disagree with
Mhm.
you. Now, you have to represent everyone, even the people who disagree with you and did not vote for you. You have to represent all voices, whether that be liberal, conservative, NDP, Green, Republican, People's Party, X, Y, and Z. The mayor is a nonpartisan role in Airdrie. Now, it's not in Calgary or Edmonton, but in Airdrie, it is a nonpartisan role. How do you see yourself working with all opposing views to ensure that the growth of your community and the challenges your communities face doesn't stop because of partisan politics?
Yeah, and that's critical. And I think that conversation has never been more sensitive than right now, right? Partially because of what's going on provincially and how they're mandating this pilot project in the large centers. But that's trickling into the rest of us, right? Our mid-sized cities. And I think for me, when I look at it, I've always represented even the people that don't agree with me. And um, you're not going to make everyone happy. And as a human doing this role, you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the fact that not everyone is going to be happy. And if you try to make everybody happy, you are going to burn out so quickly. So that's not my intention. What my intention is to create strategies with my colleagues that are going to serve the city in the best way that it can. We've identified some key issues in Airdrie that really have to be addressed in the next 4 years and quickly and aggressively. Um, so that's the key is find the strategies, look at the policies, address the policies head on. Policies are not partisan. They're just not. And you just have to make the best decision with the information you have at the time, in the interest of as many people as possible. And there's going to be times where we make decisions on policies that serve a very small portion of the population, but it's the ripple effects of those decisions that make a difference. So sometimes for the greater good, you have to make decisions for the smaller crew. The majority of Airdrie is families. It's not necessarily seniors. But we have to protect the seniors. We need to serve the seniors. They've been working so hard. They've been doing so much. They've built our community. So why would we ignore a smaller group of the population just because they're not the majority? So those are the kind of things that you have to think about when you're looking at policy and strategy. And I think that's how you have to look at it is, hey, we've got information in front of us. We've got facts and data that we've collected, which is critical. And we're making decisions based on that, not on how we feel, not on ideology.
The best line I've heard, and it comes from someone who's running for mayor of the city of Edmonton, is there's no liberal way to fill a pothole. There's no conservative way to fill a pothole. There's only a municipality way to fill a pothole. And at the end of the
Amen.
day,
Amen.
partisan politics does not belong there. So that's my own personal opinion. You send your messages to me. Now we can chat probably for about an hour, just you and I, because we're good. We've known each other for some time now. But I can imagine people are tuning in to listen about the issues, the challenges that that people are facing in Airdrie right now. Now, I know we are in the last 2 weeks of this campaign as of recording this interview, and that means you have been door knocking. That means you have been listening twice as much as you've been talking. Now, I can imagine you're hearing many different things. So I want you to put things into an umbrella for me and give me the top three macro issues that people are talking to you about that they want addressed in this next coming term in office if you are elected mayor.
Yeah, great question. The biggest one we hear is growth. Growth, growth, growth. Airdrie is absolutely exploding. We are one of the fastest growing cities in Canada, and certainly the fastest growing city in Alberta. Obviously, Cochrane is a town, so we count that as that. Growth is huge, and it's to the point where our schools are really running at or over capacity. If you look at the data, they call it, in the high 90 percentile, but that's when they're counting all the spaces, not just the classrooms. So our schools are overflowing. We're having a really difficult time with even healthcare services in Airdrie. And I mean, that's a whole plank for me as well. And I'll get into that in a second, but growth is huge. It's to the point where Airdrie has a tax rate where 87% of our tax base is residential and 13% is commercial and industrial. And I tell everybody, like, to put that in context, Calgary has a 22% industrial base alone. And Rocky View County, who's our neighbor, has a 65-35 split. So we're not expecting Airdrie to be anywhere near that. But what we do need to get to is something closer to an 80-20. And ideally, in a perfect world, eventually down the road, and I'm not talking probably in any of my time on council, is a 75-25. Because when you balance that tax base, not only are you bringing in jobs for people so they don't have to leave Airdrie or spend outside of Airdrie to work, but you're also balancing where the tax dollars come from. We have incredible businesses in Airdrie that just want to grow, and they haven't been able to because there isn't a vacancy to do so. So we have a lot of land here. We need to unlock that land by servicing it with utilities and water and those things. And if we can do that, then we can get investors here to grow and create jobs and to balance that tax base. And once we balance the tax base, guess what? We can do a lot more capital projects and a lot more services. So that's the huge one that we hear at the door for sure.
So can I play in that
Healthcare is a
sandbox
big
for a
one.
second? Can I play in that
Yeah,
sandbox for 2 seconds? Because
come on.
you
Yes.
you just mentioned, and I'm playing devil's advocate with you here respectfully, but you mentioned in the very first part of the interview, Airdrie is a bedroom community. Now, that is probably the thing that I know Airdrie the most about is you are with the proximity to Calgary, you can come to Calgary 10 minutes away, 15 minutes drive down the Deerfoot, and you can get the services that you require. Now, growth is happening, and it is happening at an exponential rate in Airdrie, and you're about to hit 100,000 people. So, how do you attract investment alongside the residential growth that's happening? Because the
Yeah, great.
economic diversification that needs to happen isn't just, okay, the businesses that are there are going to expand. You need more investment as well, more businesses to do that. How do you see yourself doing that as mayor?
Well, let me tell you, Airdrie is actually, despite our growth, we're a very attractive city. People do come to Airdrie. We've got a lot going for us, beautiful parks, beautiful pathways, a lot of really lovely things. So, to someone who's grown up here, sometimes it's, oh my gosh, it's grown so fast. But if you are from outside of Alberta and you're looking for a beautiful city to live in with a super low crime rate, Airdrie is it. We are family friendly. We're really close to Calgary. We're 10 to 15 minutes from the airport. We have a lot going for us. So a lot of businesses are looking for a community that has those qualities, and we do. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret, exciting fact that's not so secret about Airdrie. We actually have a ton of businesses that want to invest in Airdrie, but we don't have the space for them. It's not that we don't have the space, it's just not the right space for them. So our challenge truly is unlocking that land, getting it serviced so that they have somewhere to build or somewhere to grow. So the investment is here. It's knocking on our door. We're close to Highway 2, we're close to Highway 1, and we're close to an international airport. So people want to grow here. They want to build business here. We just need to make a clearing for them to do so.
Is that big A word, the annexation? And how do you see yourself working with Rocky View County to ensure? Because
Yeah.
there's going to come to a point where Airdrie can't grow anymore because the landmass is what you have unless you start annexing your municipal partners. How do you see yourself growing continuously with the economic backwinds that you have? Because if the space isn't there, How do you open up more space when you don't have it already?
That's a great question. So what a lot of people don't know is that some years ago, before my time on council, Airdrie did actually annex a whole bunch of land from the county. Scandal or not, take it for what
Scandalous,
you will.
scandalous. Oh no, but
Scandalous.
it
Um,
it happens in every municipality. It is not just an Airdrie thing. Calgary did it
yep.
with Foothills, so it's not something that is unique to Airdrie.
No, and we certainly didn't bully anyone into it. It was a provincial, initiative that happened, and it's a good thing it did because Airdrie did need to grow. So, props to the people that had that foresight. But Airdrie actually has enough land currently to grow to 250,000 people, and we're not quite at 100 yet. So, in 50 years, they expect that we could be at that level. Now, I'm a big fan of diversification in housing. So not just anywhere. Obviously, you don't want, a six floor apartment building in the middle of a suburbia, cookie cutter neighborhood, of course. But there is room for some medium to high density living in key parts of Airdrie. And then we just need to make sure that as a council, we're approving land development that allows for a higher percentage of industrial and commercial. We have the land. We just need to grow it. Now, if you're asking if we're going to grow, agricultural farming within the Airdrie city limits, no, that's not the direction that we're going to be able to go. But we can certainly grow agri-foods. We can certainly grow production. We can certainly grow biotech. There's a lot of industries that we are a perfect fit for sure.
So going back to the original question about the three topics that you're hearing most about at the door, and I appreciate you taking time to answer those questions. And we're going to play in this each sandbox as we continue on. What's the second topic that you're hearing about at the doorsteps?
We hear about healthcare all the time. Healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. Airdrie is one of the largest cities in Canada without a hospital. Some would argue that we're so close to Peter Lougheed and Foothills hospitals in Calgary that we don't need one. But what's happening, and this is the true data, these are the facts that we collect from an organization here in Airdrie called the Airdrie Health Foundation. They've been in business for 15 years, and their single priority is to make sure that Airdrie has resources for health. And they're very tightly intertwined with our Airdrie Urgent Care Center. They're the ones that got Airdrie Urgent Care to 24-hour service. They're the ones that, provide a lot of the equipment that's needed there because urgent cares don't typically carry, emergency department level equipment. So we have a lot now because of their advocacy and fundraising efforts, not because they've necessarily been, putting their hand out to the federal government. Now, currently, they have just gotten $8 million earlier this year to expand the urgent care. Which is great, which is super important and super needed, but it's still not big enough. Airdrie's at 90,000, just over 90,000 people. And our urgent care actually services the region. And a lot of the data, a lot of the people that come up to their urgent care are from Cochrane because they don't have overnight support. They come from Strathmore, Langdon, and a lot of people come from North Calgary because they see our wait time might be 2 or 3 hours, whereas PLC is 8 hours. So they go, oh, well, we'll just go up to Airdrie. And then what's happening is Airdrie doesn't have a lot of walk-in clinics in the evenings. So all of the people that should have gone to a walk-in clinic but couldn't get in are coming to urgent care. And then everybody who needs hospital care or some level of urgent care that live in Airdrie go, well, I'm not going to urgent care. It's too full. And off they go to Didsbury and Olds to their hospitals. And then people go, well, why does Didsbury and Olds have hospitals? They're way smaller than us. And of course, those were the results of the Peter Lougheed era. But healthcare here is struggling. We're getting a lot better at family docs. We're getting more of them, but we're not where we need to be. There are still people on wait lists and there are still people looking for doctors in Airdrie. A lot of people go to Calgary or elsewhere for care. We don't have a diabetes clinic. We don't have a dialysis clinic. We have mothers who have given birth on the Deerfoot because we don't have any kind of maternal care. And we only have one blood clinic for 90,000 people. So it's a challenge. We're lacking in resources. Municipalities obviously can't build a hospital. And you know what? I would never ask for like a trauma center hospital for Airdrie, but those small H hospitals and at least those things that I just listed, we can be advocating for those and expansion of those in Airdrie. And I don't think that they're an unreasonable request. I think it's more a matter of can we get it built by the province and would they be willing to staff it via Alberta Health?
So you and I have had this conversation before because about 2.5 years ago, we first met each other and I brought you on for the cross border interviews. And I went back and I listened to that interview prior to this recording to see if anything had changed. And we had talked about healthcare back in 2023. And it seems so much longer ago, but it was 2.5 years ago when we first chatted. What will be different under a Spearman mayoralship that will move this forward? Because municipalities, as you just said, do not build hospitals. They should not be in the realm of what AHS does. But I have spoken to more mayors over the last month and a half who say healthcare is a top priority than I am ever expecting to ever talk about ever again. But here we are. How do you see yourself as mayor moving this ball forward to ensure that you get a hospital or you get some traction to build something that will give the services that Airdrie residents need around healthcare?
Yeah, really good question. And I'm going to preface it with this. The provincial government committed $3 million to a North Calgary slash Airdrie health needs assessment a couple of years ago in the budget. That has not provided any information. I don't even know if it's started. As far as I've heard, it hasn't moved. The needle has not moved on that. So we don't know. And rumors fly all the time. There's a plot of land in Livingston in Calgary that's meant for a hospital, but I don't believe Airdrie Health has picked it up as a capital project. And there's urgent care potential land in North Calgary as well. And I go, well, urgent care is still not going to solve our problems. We have an urgent care. It's just oversubscribed, but it still doesn't solve for dialysis, diabetes clinic, or urgent, almost emergency department style things. So for me, one of the things that I think would be different for a Mayor Spearman in Airdrie, is that I actually want to see a hospital, or what I call a small H hospital. And our Airdrie Health Foundation refers to that as a Sturgeon County style hospital. So, not over the top, very small in scale, but has the services we need. So, number one, I would make space for the Airdrie Health Foundation to have their voice at every table we can get them at. That would be huge for me. And like I said earlier, when someone has a gift or a talent or a capacity, we need to make a clearing and let them do their thing. And that would be huge for me for Airdrie Health Foundation. I really want to make sure they do that. But also, I think our current or previous councils have heard no on the hospital topic for so long, they just don't even ask anymore. And I do. I'm not willing to take that as a no. I'm not willing to hear, well, this is just the way we've always done it. I recognize that there's a lot of pressure coming from a lot of directions on our health ministries right now. But it doesn't mean we can't start that conversation. We can't put pressure on that $3 million. We can't put pressure on identifying land in Airdrie. We've got to do it. We've got to do it. Everybody that I've talked to in Airdrie, with the exception of, I think, 2 people, have said something's got to give. Something's got to give. And I am willing to take on that fire. And, when you mentioned that mayors from all over Alberta are saying healthcare is in crisis, well, you know what? Then maybe we band together and start having those conversations, whether it's as a mid-sized mayor's committee or whether it's as Alberta municipalities. But if we're all falling apart under this healthcare, then something has to change. We can't be letting people die. We can't.
One of the big things that mayors do is that collaboration, not with just the council, but also with the provincial government.
Yeah.
Now, respectfully, people want a champion. They want someone who will go toe to toe and ensure that their municipality gets what they deserve when it comes to the provincial funding model. But the reality is, it's not always going to happen. Airdrie is going to not get things from time to time. How do you see yourself as mayor ensuring that you are in the conversations that need to be in around infrastructure, around healthcare when it comes to the province, and ensuring that Airdrie's voice is heard, but heard respectfully and not just go
Mhm.
in there guns a blazing?
Yeah, and you know what? You're right. I think we all have passion and things that fire us up, but we also need to be respectful. We also need to do things diplomatically. At the end of the day, everybody in government is a human being and they have things that they care about, things that affect them. things that put pressure on them. When we come to the table over the next 4 years to the province, I never want to come to the table with my hand out or with a complaint. That's not how we get things done. That's not how we get things done in business. That's not how we get things done, in our family lives. Like, how well does it go in your personal relationships when you just start with an insult? Like, it's never going to get you anywhere. So, I do have relationships at different levels of government. Obviously, ministries change. We have a great intergovernmental affairs team here at Airdrie that does great work. And of course, we've got to collaborate with them when we come to the table. Um, but for me, it's about coming with solutions, coming with ideas, coming with, hey, you know what? I saw the directive that you were given by the premier. Here's where I think we can help you from an Airdrie standpoint. So if we can solve for some of their issues at the same time that we're asking for support, those mutually beneficial setups are the best thing we can do to have powerful collaboration. And I know that like the LGFF funding model is going to be under pressure for the next few years as the oil and gas industry is going to see some ups and downs and then some more downs. And that is tied specifically to our capital funding as municipalities, right? So I recognize that we as municipalities asked for that model and we have to deal with what we've asked for. Um, but like I said, if we come to the table with solutions, if we come to the table with true collaborative spirit, that's the only way. We can't come in lighting things on fire and insulting people because if someone came to me that way, do you think I'd want to help them? Probably not. So let's just be human about it. Let's be real with each other and try and get things done and move the needle forward for everyone.
So, going back to the original question, the third big thing that you're hearing at the doorsteps is
Affordability, just in general, people are really struggling. And unfortunately, again, something where we as a municipal government can't necessarily affect the cost of the housing market. We can't necessarily affect the cost of groceries, the cost of gas. But what we can do is look at our municipal services and see how we can support people a little bit better. A lot of people are on fixed incomes. A lot of people have kids. Activities are expensive. What we don't want is for people to have to make decisions on their basic human needs. And I always chuckle because there's kind of this overusage, for me, overusage of mental health as a buzzword. And listen, I don't know a single person that hasn't dealt with mental health struggles. You, me, all of the people we know, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, when our basic human needs are not met, when we don't have a safe home to live in, when we don't have groceries, when we can't get to our school or work, when we don't have meaningful social relationships, that's when mental health immediately breaks down. And then, obviously there's the medical side of mental health, but for affordability, if you are constantly worrying about your basic human needs being met, that's not good. We're in a first world country. We are in one of the highest income cities. Our average income, I think last year was like 121,000 per household. There is no reason that people shouldn't be able to live on that. So from a municipal level, having programs in place or having services in place that people can actually afford. What are we doing to help seniors get to the rec center? What are we doing to help, young adults get to post-secondary? Are we providing reasonable transit service levels to them? Things like that. So if we can do those things and do it in a way that they can afford out of pocket, then I think we're doing it right. And it's just taking those little pressures off, right? Because $20 here, $10 there, it all adds up, especially when you have a few people living in your home.
now you opened up this line of questioning, so I have to play in the sandbox a little bit here. Affordability is one of the key rails that a lot of people say, and it's those buzzwords. We're going to make
Mhm.
things cheaper. We're going to make sure we're spending wisely. And that's where I want to pick up on. Now, you have been around that council table for the last 4 years, and you have passed budgets, and you have looked at where the municipality is spending. Respectfully, do you believe the city of Airdrie spends, and I'm going to paraphrase this, the portion of the property taxes that the municipality collects and uses for itself, because there are two other portions, which is the education portion and the seniors portion, which go to the province to then dismantle into schools and seniors housing. So,
Yeah.
with that, Does the city of Airdrie spend the tax dollars it collects wisely?
Mm. I mean, that's a question that everyone will answer differently. Every single resident in this city is going to answer differently. I think the key here is
But you're running
educating.
for mayor.
I know, but running for mayor, I have to be aware of that, right? Because at the end of the day, what I see is valuable, someone may not. And it's going back to your point about we need to represent everyone, even the people that we don't necessarily agree with. So the portion that we have, I will tell you, Airdrie does have one of the lowest tax rates in the province. We do, and that's a fact, and we can back that up. So there are data points on that that we can absolutely prove that fact. The challenge is the value of the houses that are here have been increasing and increasing and increasing every year. But you don't see the value of that until you actually sell your house, right? So people go, well, sure, my house has gone up in value, but all that means is I'm paying more on my taxes. We have a very lean operation at the City of Airdrie, but we have major capital projects. We actually have $1 billion in capital projects that we need to achieve in the next 10 years. And that's also a fact. So here we are collecting from 90,000 people. Maybe we'll get over 100 in the next, couple of years, and then maybe we'll get to 110. I don't know. But really, 110,000 people, many of whom are children. So we're talking 30 to 40,000 households have to split $1 billion in capital projects, net new. And that's not necessarily counting all of the infrastructure we have to build underground. And they say to people, as I've had people say to me at the door, they say, Heather, I don't see what I'm getting for my money. And I have to speak to that. And I go, okay, I understand that you don't. And I know you're seeing this new building we've just built, and we've got a new fire hall coming, and we've got a new fire truck we had to order, and a few different things. But what a lot of people don't see is the stuff that goes under the ground. And this is not a slam on Calgary at all, but a couple of years ago, Calgary had a water main break, and it was incredibly impactful on the city of Airdrie. We couldn't use water. We were under extreme water restrictions because they're our only water source. Airdrie does an exceptional job of keeping our underground infrastructure in very good shape. And it is aging at the same speed as Calgary, but Calgary hasn't been able to keep up with theirs to the extent that we have. So for us, you don't always see where we're spending those dollars. It's about the education. It's about saying, hey guys, I know it feels like you're spending a lot on taxes, but here's what you're getting for it. And I know you don't see this, but guess what? The fact that you can flush your toilet right now and we'll be able to flush it again in, every day for the next 2 years is huge, because we do have a wastewater issue where we're about to hit max capacity, and we have a $114 million wastewater line that has to get installed in 2 years' time, or we will have people that cannot flush their toilets. You're never going to see that. You're never going to see that $114 million. You're not going to see it. You won't even drive by the pipe being installed in the ground because it's, strategically placed to tap into the Calgary line. But man, if you can't flush your toilets in 2 years' time, you're sure going to know. So, those are the things we talk about, and that's the education piece. We've really got to share with people. We need to do a better job of that.
It brings up about 12 different questions I want to ask, and I'm cautious of time.
Of course it does.
But you're right. People want to see tangible items when they pay their property taxes. Now, not everyone is going to be happy that you built a brand new library. Not everyone's going to be happy that you have to repair the pool. That's an ongoing issue right now. Not everyone's going to be happy that there's not enough rec facilities in town that you have to go to Calgary. It's the name of the game. How do you balance that? How do you see yourself leading a council in balancing what the people want with the realities of what the municipality can deliver? Education is great, but education can only take you so far. There has to be a point in time when you have to just tell people the truth and say, unfortunately, unless you want your taxes 12% up every year for the next 4 years, we just
Yeah.
can't do this right now. How important is it going to be for yourself to be truthful around how you spend your money over the next 4 years? Because you're right, municipalities are hurting for infrastructure dollars right now. And unless you're going to go to the people and say, guess what, we're not going to get reelected in 4 years, it's going to be tough. How important is it to be truthful around that budget cycle?
Super important. Being truthful is super important around that budget cycle, and it is the responsibility of both the administration and all 7 council members to be transparent about it. And to answer your kind of your other question near the beginning of the question there about, how are we going to do it in a way that everybody feels like they're getting heard and getting their money's worth? Yes, it's about being transparent with the budget, but Airdrie does a really good job, and I really hope over the next 4 years we stay in this realm. We do a really good job of reaching out. We do a census every year. We do a community satisfaction survey every year. And we do lots of other engagement around, the rec facility that's coming up. We did it for the library building. We do it for a lot of different things because we want to know what people think. And we have open houses. We send out surveys. We do digital surveys. We do a lot. And we actually, on the Airdrie website, we actually have a whole section dedicated to resident engagement. And you can go on at any time and see the progress of multiple projects. And if there's an opportunity for feedback in there, you can do that. And then how that all distills down is it eventually comes to the council table with all the results. And it goes, okay, council, this is what the people of Airdrie are saying. Please make your decision accordingly. And administration will bring context. They'll bring best practices. Sometimes there'll be a consultant involved. A good example of that is black bins for Airdrie. Super divisive. And when it came down to the council vote, it was 4 against black bins and 3 for it. And then one of the council members, after we moved on to the next agenda item, went, actually, I changed my mind. Can we go back and vote again? And we did, and we passed black bins that night. It was after a ton of community engagement. Still, lots of people are upset about black bins because it does mean a couple more bucks on your utility bill, but we need black bins in Airdrie. We've never had them. And then the birds rip people's garbages open and yada, yada, yada.
What did people do with their garbage beforehand? Just put it at the end of the road?
You put your garbage bag on the road. You get 1 garbage bag a week and you put it on the road and it gets picked up. But it's not safe for the driver, right? The collector is hand lifting these bags that could have anything in them. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, black bins are coming to Airdrie March of 2026, assuming the rollout is all according to plan. But that was an example of very divisive topic. A lot of people really not for it, but we listened to the data, we listened to the experts, and it came to pass because it really was what the people wanted. They asked for it, and we had to make it happen.
So I'm very cautious of time here, and I do have a few more questions I want to get in here. But before we turn to what happens after October 20th and on October 21st, depending on if the vote actually gets counted correctly on that night, because we're hearing some municipalities are going to take a little bit longer, which is understandable, but hopefully we can do it all in one night. I have one big question, and you mentioned it briefly at the beginning of the interview. And the only reason I bring this up is because I was just recently up in Airdrie for a quick meeting, and I was speaking to some people that I knew, and the one thing that they talked about was safety. Now, you said you relatively low crime rate, which is understandable, but relatively low crime rate is still no crime. It's still more than no crime.
Yep.
Safety is one of these things that it's very circumvent. It all depends on who you are. I've never not felt safe in Airdrie. How do you see yourself working with the RCMP to ensure that people feel safe in their community?
That's a loaded question. I like it, but it's loaded because we're on the precipice of a potential Alberta police force that's potentially asking municipalities to create their own municipal police force. So that's going to be tough. Now,
okay. So then can I rephrase the question?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to rephrase the question in this way, but I'm going to keep in because I want the context in here. How do you ensure people feel safe in their community?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. I think a big portion of it boils down to city planning. Are we creating neighborhoods and areas that are well lit, well planned? Roadways and pathways are relatively open, so that people feel safe to be able to move through communities. One thing I really like about Airdrie is that most of our residential areas are 30-kilometer zones and have been for a very long time. And that's really good for keeping kids safe because there's a lot of kids here and they just run out into the street, mine included, although I think we've tampered that down
Well, I'm just
So
saying this. Airdrie is that community where you can drive down the street and you know where exactly all the kids are because their bikes are in the front lawn.
it's true. It's true. So it's, from a safety perspective, obviously we get petty crime, we get some vandalism. There's a little bit of uh there's some drug busts now and again, things like that. But generally speaking, I think the RCMP is doing a really good job. My only wish for them really would be that we would have more of them. I think our biggest issue, we hear complaints about loud vehicles on the streets in the summer, all night long racing around, treating our roads like drag strips. We hear just petty crime, people breaking into vehicles to get things. But sometimes that is, folks coming up from the city, coming up from Calgary, coming to take advantage of the opportunity in front of them and hitting a new area.
Do
So
you do you
it's
feel
definitely
safe?
about getting, what's that?
Do you feel safe in Airdrie?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do. I think I think it's a really safe place to raise a family. Of course, we lock our doors. It's Canada, but it's not Canada from 1970. You got to lock your front door.
Yeah.
It's normal, and you lock your cars. But generally speaking, we can be safe by planning well and by supporting our law enforcement and also having the right social services to help people as well.
I appreciate your answer there, and I want to turn to what happens after October 20th. October 21st, you wake up as Mayor-elect Heather Spearman for the great city of Airdrie, Alberta. What will be priority number one for you, Heather?
Number one is going to be building relationships with the new council. I think that's critical. We've got to set everything off on the right foot. The nice thing about having one term under my belt is that I haven't been on so long that I am apathetic to anything or in a certain, cycle, but I've been on long enough to understand how everything basically works or where to go for help if I need it. So step one is let's roll up our sleeves. Step two is let's get engaged and build relationships within the team, figure out where everybody's strengths are. And then for Airdrie, we go right into budget season. And then right after budget season, I believe, is our Alberta Municipalities Conference, which I'm hoping most or all of council will attend as well.
Which is just right down the road. It's in Calgary this year, so you got to be able
It's
to
in
send all.
Calgary this year. So yeah,
So,
it'll be great.
okay, understandable. Now, I want to talk about those six other people that you'll be elected alongside. Now, you don't get to choose those people. The great people of Airdrie get to choose who the next council is. And that
Yeah.
means that you, as mayor, are going to have to lead a ragtag group of misfits to the great team Airdrie approach. Can you
Yeah.
lead a team? Because that's what people are electing as a mayor is a leader. Can you lead a team?
I can. I've done it in my career multiple times. I do it. Yeah, I love leading. And for clarity, leading is not about bossing people around or trying to control people. It is truly about leading from the trenches, being a part of everything, and doing the work, in lockstep with each other.
So my final question is actually before I ask the final question, I should mention if you want to reach out to Heather to get involved in her campaign or learn more about her or ask her questions about this upcoming election, the links to the show to the website and the social media pages will be in the show notes below, and the email address will be in the show notes below as well. Highly recommend you do it so that way you can stay engaged and stay involved in this critical election. So with that being said, my $1 million question. And this is the one time of the conversation where I turn the microphone over to you and you can talk for as little or as long as you want to. Heather, why should people of Airdrie put their trust into you on October 20th to be their next city mayor?
Thank you, Chris. I love that question. So the thing about Airdrie is we are an incredible, incredible city with incredible people, and they are very talented, very professional people as well, skilled people in multiple ways. And our biggest challenge right now truly is growth, and it truly is how are we going to balance with economic development? My whole career has been around working with businesses and consulting businesses, whether they're small mom and pop shops or global Fortune 500s. And I am the most qualified mayoral candidate to get Airdrie into those business conversations. And it really is the role of a mayor to have a lot of those chats. I've got the relationships. I am super keen to do it. I listen to our ECDEV, I listen to our chamber, and I know what our region needs and the areas where I don't know. I'm willing to listen. And I think you really do need a leader who listens, not just one that's going to say, here's how we're going to do it. Here's what we have to do. Um, so I bring a huge professional toolkit to the table that none of the other candidates are able to do. And I have a true understanding of politics. I've grown up around politics my whole life. I've been passionate about it. And like I said at the beginning, I really am born for this role. I really am someone who can hear you, work with you, and doesn't matter what your beliefs or ideology are, doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, I want to hear from you. I want to move this city forward together. I think we've got a great thing going. We've got a great movement going. And these next 4 years are going to have some really challenging times. And we need someone who can handle it and stay level-headed, not get emotional about it, and truly move the needle forward and make sure that Airdrie is getting the growth, the attention, and the support that it deserves.
Heather, it is always a pleasure to sit down with you and chat about municipal politics. I always learn so much from you. All the best in the coming days as we enter in the final leg of this all important election. For those, again, who want to learn a little bit more, reach out to her on social media, and the links will be in the show notes. Heather, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris. It is always a treat, and may this not be our last interview together. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025 here on Municipal Affairs. Quick editorial note, if you are a candidate running in this upcoming election and want to be featured on this show before the last week of the campaign, reach out to us today by visiting the links in the show notes or by sending us a message on social media. Also, quick reminder that on Monday, October 20th at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time, we are going live on YouTube with in-depth analysis from municipal leaders, stakeholders, past mayors, past councillors to talk about this election and the future of municipalities in the province of Alberta. Quick also side note, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platforms or by visiting us on YouTube. If you're watching us there now, click that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Also, share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Till next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Alberta Municipal Votes 2025 shortly. Till then, everyone.